What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Meanwhile, coming at you with a solo video. Yes, a solo video. So let's get right into it. Today, we'll be discussing what I think is 2020's most underrated show, Servant. Spoiler alert ahead. You've been warned. So you're likely sitting there asking yourself, what is Servant? This is a mother of a slow burn show created by Tony Bascalop, who created, wrote, produced, and is also the executive producer of the show. You probably know him from 24 Live Another Day, if you've ever seen that. But more importantly, this show is exclusively available on Apple TV. And even more importantly, this was produced by the king of twists himself, M. Night Shyamalan. And yes, some of you out there will be clicking away, but
I say, hold up, wait a minute.
Yes, I know his track record is remarkably shaky. And I'm looking at you, Glass. You slapped me in the face. But hear me out. Episode 1 was directed by Shyamalan himself. This episode quickly establishes that something is very wrong with this family. So we meet Sean, who is a consultant chef, played by the amazing Toby Kebbell. You probably recognize him from Black Mirror. And his wife Dorothy, who is a local news anchor who is always out on call, leaving Sean home alone. Dorothy is played by the admirable Lauren Ambrose, important to mention. And the couple are visibly very wealthy, or at least come from money, but they're having major issues whilst looking after their new baby boy, Jericho. Now, things take a turn when Sean is given their child to bring up to the bedroom when we explicitly see him smacked his head on the crib. Now, when I first watched this, I was like, what on earth did I just see? So we find out that they've actually lost their child, and Dorothy was unable to handle the grief and thus was given a born-again doll to help her cope. Now, these things are creepy as hell, to the point where when the show created the doll, they were like, dude, this is actually too creepy. So they actually had to retcon that first doll. But the one we see in the show is still way too lifelike for me. However, Dorothy quite literally thinks that this is their actual son, Jericho, because of her grief. So Sean, her husband, plays along, thinking that's going to help his wife get over the death of their son. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that's all sorts of messed up. Now, to me, this premise alone is already interesting enough to keep me on a show, but as we all know, it's Shyamalan, so here come the twists. And, we know he likes twists. Dorothy feels that Jericho needs a live-in nanny to look after him while she's at work, and while Sean is busy consulting as a chef. So she hires a young country girl, Leanne, and we quickly find out all is not as it seems with her. Deeply religious and somewhat awkward, Sean instantly tells her that when Dorothy isn't in the house, she can chill out. She can stop treating the doll like a real baby. Now, Leanne ignores this and continues to treat the doll like a child. Now, okay, it's all getting a bit suspect here. Sean finds that one day the doll has actually disappeared and has been replaced with a real-life baby. Now here, Shyamalan twist coming in hot. Sending him into a panic, do you blame him? He enlists the help of Dorothy's alcoholic brother Julian, who is played by the one and only Rupert Grint, yes, Ron Weasley, with an American accent, to get to the bottom of what is happening. Now, we could go on for ages and I could do a deep dive, but I'm just going to keep it relatively simple. The show continues to twist and turn from here, from the baby turning to and from the doll like it's a real child into a doll again, and it's all tied to the arrival of Leanne. And we get a glimpse of what she's kind of like at. She's from this religious cult we find later in the show. Like, her uncle comes to dinner to try and re-recruit her. It's pretty weird. Now, Shyamalan himself has described this show as an urban nightmare, because I guess it is. It's everyone's, it's any parent's nightmare, really, let's be real. And really focuses on what would be a cool New York couple's worst nightmare from a social perspective. This is always hinted at by Sean and Julian's conversations, refusing to go to the police because it would be such a scandal. And this rationale did annoy me as a viewer, but I can almost understand because, like, let's be real, rich people hate scandals, and this show really does show the lengths that these guys are willing to go to maintain the illusion that everything is okay and everything is normal in this family. We really see that these two guys are really just trying not to upset Dorothy, because we actually see in flashbacks that when Jericho died, it was actually her fault. She left Jericho in a car during a heat wave, and he was a baby, and she left him there for hours. And that it was a pretty hard watch, I have to say. I mean, you can't really blame her for having a breakdown. Losing a child is traumatic enough, but kind of living with the guilt that you were the one who did it. I really, really must compliment the cinematography used throughout season 1. I think this is a beautiful watch. Most of the season takes place at the Turner's residence. It seldom leaves that house throughout the whole season, but it never gets boring. It always creates the feeling that something is wrong. And what was important to Shyamalan was the idea of seeing the world through a straw, supposedly. Whatever that actually means, but I think I kind of get it. So what you can expect as the episodes progress and what Shyamalan will do as he expands is to continue showing it through a straw. Which I guess he means the house, really. He wants viewers to crave more, and I have to say, throughout every episode, you're literally just like, I need more, but not in a way where it's annoying. You want answers, and it makes you want to just keep binge watching. And I really, really have to highlight the cooking montages in this show. As I said earlier, Sean is a consultant chef, and there are so many great shots and montages of him cooking ridiculously good-looking food. In fact, just to pay extra attention, Shyamalan actually hired a world-class chef, Mark Vitri, to supervise, who in turn actually got some of his colleagues to come and, supervise some of the shots. I do like that attention to detail. We like it. And let's be real. Okay, how can I talk about cinematography without an honorable mention to Trevor Gurikis? Sorry if I'm butchering that again. And his soundtrack, which is honestly quite a difficult listen on its own, and that's coming from me. I think it's very much a companion piece to the show and can really honestly only really be consumed with the visuals that you're seeing on screen, because it's very subtle throughout the show. It's haunting, consisting mostly of piano, triangles, stringed instruments, and high-pitched white noise, which it's a very uncomfortable listen at times. It's quite an experience, I would say, the soundtrack, but I'm going to contradict myself and say, give it a listen just the one time and you'll kind of see what I mean. So why is this choice my pick for underrated show of 2020? Mostly because it isn't to do with superheroes, isn't a big budget CGI, big show. It's not a overly smart plot at the minute. It's just a story of a family who are going through grief, and a blessing in disguise shows up with, on their doorstep, and the consequences we haven't even really found out. It's like I said earlier, it's just constant hinting at, and hint work and guesswork. And I got to say, that's kind of typical Shyamalan, and that's probably why he hopped on board to put his name as producer. And I also got to, highlight the acting in this is really, really great. And, a special shout out to Rupert Grint, because his American accent is pretty believable.
What if she never comes back? Can't take a doll to soccer practice, Sean.
I have to say it did take me 2 episodes to actually adjust to his accent because it was just so surreal. But it was also a very different character for him to play. We all know Ron Weasley. I don't even need to go on about him, but, he's an alcoholic, and it's very, very, very much hinted that he's a drug addict as well in this show. So we hate watching characters make illogical decisions. We know that. I hate that. You hate that. It's annoying when it just serves the plot. Every episode felt like it was its own small film, and every decision made sense within the show. Nothing felt like a what the hell moment. So I really respect that. I mean, if anything, I hate when people just make decisions that serve the plot. It doesn't make sense in a real world context. Every episode is only 30 minutes as well. And they do feel like a small film, I gotta say. It looks like it, feels like it. And it's a really easy binge. It's only 10 episodes, season 1. So, I mean, you just sit down with a bottle of wine, and a lot of wine is drank in this show. Like, oh my God. And although the show never really presents real answers to anything, every time one question is answered, honestly, another presents itself, making you want more. And boy, am I ready for season 2, because this season ends with Leanne's aunt and uncle showing up, taking Leanne with them at the very end, meaning Jericho reverts back to being a doll. Yes, you heard that correct. But the thing is, it's never fully confirmed. Throughout the whole show, it is implied heavily that Leanne is the reason that Jericho came back to life as a baby, but it's never cemented. It is always hinted that she has some kind of gift, some kind of power. And then when you find out that Leanne's aunt in a flashback is actually shown on a newsreel as a cult leader, you're just kind of like, okay, this is like, we're going to a different place, season 2. And I'm so ready for it because, they leave the house, walk on the street, and you're like, oh, okay, this is the end. It's just going to end on this. Actually, it's a lie. A whole bunch of cultists show up, form a big-ass weird hug in the middle of the street, and suddenly disappear without a trace. Boom. That's the end of the season. That's it. Cliffhanger much. Shyamalan plans on giving this a full 60 episodes. I'm all in, making it roughly 6 seasons, but let's just hope he can end this on a high, because his track record, like I said, is pretty shaky, but I am so ready for this. I'm so excited for it. And I really hope Apple TV, extend this on to 6 seasons. But yeah, I think that's my piece. Check it out. Check out Servant. It's a great show. Most people who get Apple products nowadays, they get a year free of Apple TV. Even then, it's only a couple quid a month. I think it's worth the purchase, to be honest with you. And that is it. That is the first Meanwhile Marcus solo episode. I hope you've enjoyed. Hit that like button. All of the good stuff is down in the comments below. I've been Marcus. This has been Meanwhile, and see you next time.